The Spurs secured themselves one of the top spots in the upcoming NBA lottery, but does that mean the rebuilding misery is over?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, welcome back to Locked On Spurs. We're here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kings 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. TGIF, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good day. End of the work week. Getting ready for tonight's game. Spurs Warriors. Yay. Really nothing to be yaying about. But nevertheless, there is a game. Heads up. You're probably going to hear the quickest ever preview for tonight's game. Just a heads up. Probably last like 3 sentences. Also, we're going to be going into, can the Spurs, you guys, the fan base, expect another rebuilding season, even though they secured themselves one of the top 14% slots in the upcoming draft lottery? And speaking of the lottery and the draft, what are fans saying about this upcoming offseason? Thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts. Don't forget about FanDuel. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Who is helping me out close out the week? He is back, everybody. My colleague at Kent 5 TV on the TV side, holding down the sports anchor. He is Nate Ryan. Nate, welcome back.
Jeff, thanks so much for having me again, man. Always a pleasure hopping on.
I heard that you're finally have a breather. You've been having a hectic work week that you finally can breathe a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's fun, man. When you get to talk about sports for a living, man, it doesn't get too strenuous. But yeah, no, we had a game, our last home game of the season, at least relatively last game at the AT&T Center earlier this week. Was it the last game for Pop? Who knows? But no, it's always fun.
Yeah, of course. You know, Nate gets himself a day off-ish, and then here I am. Hey, Nate, can you help me go up on a podcast? So I'm sorry about that, Nate.
No, man, we'll be working the rest of the week, man. We're good. Counting down to Saturday, I guess, right?
Exactly, yeah. Well, make sure to follow Nate right now on Twitter. Really good follow. You do it right now, and I'm pretty sure he will follow you back. He's not one of those guys. You know Nate, that ignores everybody. There, he is on Twitter at Nate Ryan Sports. That's at NateRyan Sports, all one word. So, Nate, season is winding down. The good news is, with the recent loss to the Jazz, the Spurs secured themselves one of the top 14% slots. Just depends if they're 1, 2, 3, and all that, how it shakes out. But yay, there is your silver lining for the season so far. But that still begs the question, Nate. Is the misery going to be over even if the basketball gods smile on them and they get themselves number 1, number 2, or number 3 pick? Do we have to bear this all over again?
No, we shouldn't. You and I were talking, should we expect another rebuilding season? No, regardless. Even if we don't make the playoffs next year, the excitement level, should we get picks 1 through 3, heck, even 1 through 5,
right?
It's going to be exciting basketball, and it's going to be playing with a lot more of a purpose, and we're going to be a lot more competitive in ball games because, look, if we get the number 1 pick, automatically, I've said that we had one game, I think it was, on national television this year, and that was the Alamo Dome game against the Warriors back in January. And the Spurs, are so accustomed to Thursday nights on TNT, a lot more
right.
Wednesday, Friday ESPN games because they've been contending for so long. This year, we only had one. If you get the number 1 pick, if you get Victor Wembanyama or probably even Scoot Henderson, that's a person that transcends not only a team, but an entire league. We talk about the hype that these guys come with. Automatically, you'll see an uptick in nationally televised games. You'll see national beat writers down here covering because Wembanyama, everybody's talking about right now, is the best prospect coming out of the draft since LeBron James. And it was the same deal you saw with LeBron James. You saw the same things with guys like Zion Williamson with the Pelicans a few years ago. The attention and the excitement level, that all speaks for itself. I mean, but on the court products, you've got guys this year who are getting another year of experience under their belts. You've got the San Antonio Spurs with not only their draft capital this year, they're going to get a likely top 5 pick, but they've only already got to some of the most cap space in the league. So they can go out, they can buy guys where they can piece in around this already young core. And the minutes this year, I mean, they've got 3 first-round picks, right? Sohan, Branham, and Wesley this year. Those guys, the minutes that they got this year, at this point, it doesn't feel like Sohan is a rookie anymore, right? Because he starts every single night. And, coming into the leap, I think he's going to make going into next year, it'll feel like he's been in the league for 4 or 5 years already. So you add in a generational star type prospect. No, I'm not saying they'd make the playoffs with a guy like Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson, but the excitement level and the idea of contending for a playoff spot, especially now that the playoffs have been expanded to the play-in tournament with 10 teams, that returns.
I think, in my opinion, I think it will be another rebuilding season, but instead of a cap with all capital letters, as it is this year, lowercase letters. And what I mean by that is because let's just say you do get Scoot or number 3 pick or Wemby, that's still a teenager. You're going to have to still build around that player. If the Spurs win out the lottery and get a Wemby, then I don't think the rebuild / emphasis on build part would be that much longer, because I think current roster, they have the pieces to build around Wemby. But if they fall to 2 or 3, 4 or 5, then I think the rebuilding, the retooling maybe has to continue, because I don't know if they have the pieces right now to build around a Scoot or whoever's going to be the projected 3, 4, or 5 pick. So, albeit you're absolutely right, Nate, cameras will be on San Antonio. There'll be a lot more games on TV. Wemby comes, forget about it. The entire French country is going to move to San Antonio. Everybody's going to be in San Antonio. French media is going to be in San Antonio, as you highlighted. Games, yeah, that's all great. But as far as success on the court and going beyond a play-in, or at least getting close to it, or making things interesting, I think that's still maybe about a season, 2 seasons max still to go. So although I don't think we'll see a fallout as we saw this year, just bad game on the court, and the record reflects that, I think you still need to build around whoever's the top pick the Spurs get. Nate, your thoughts?
Of course, I'm looking at rebuilding. You can still make the playoffs, especially now with the playoffs expanding to 10 teams. You can still make the playoffs with an idea towards rebuilding for the future, especially the Spurs can, because of their draft capital coming up in the next few years. I mean, looking at 2025, that's when the fruit of the trades that they've made really starts to kick in. 2025 is when you've got an unprotected pick from the Hawks. Who knows how they'll be in a couple of years? You've got a first rounder from the Bulls. Next year, you've got 2 first rounders your own and 1 from the Raptors. But as you can still gun for a 6, 7, 8, 9 seed, you can land at one of those spots and still be rebuilding, I think, for the future, and rebuilding because what are you rebuilding for? When you're rebuilding, you rebuild for a championship, right? I look at rebuilding as building a team that can contend for a championship. And I still think that, look at a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? They've got 1 star in Gilgeous-Alexander, but nobody really expected them to be competing for a playoff spot as quickly as sort of they have, but they've got a lot of good young players. They've got both Jalen Williams's guys that they took in the draft last year that they built around SGA. And all of a sudden they're a team. I mean, they've got Holmgren, who's been out for this season, who'll be back next year, but they're a team that has the talent right now. Well, they're likely will be in the play-in tournament. And when they can still add to that current core, getting that taste of the playoffs, I think, for the young guys, that's a big bonus.
He is Nate Ryan with Ken's 5 TV. Follow him on Twitter at Nate Ryan Sports. Make sure you do that right now. We're talking about if the rebuild will continue leaking into next season, despite the fact them getting a top 3 pick. We hope, crossing fingers. Yeah, right. I Nate, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's kind of like maybe rebuilding is the wrong word. Maybe it becomes a retooling at that point.
And I think too, it's one of those things where you can still be you can still be building with an eye towards the future. But this past season, I mean, there were nights that we went out and we just knew we were going to get, smoked by double digits, holding players out with injury, not forcing players to play in games, where it's, a couple guys have got some knee soreness or some injury management kind of deals, and you don't see them play in the games as much. We might not get more than 20 wins this season. Next year, it's not going to be as difficult. So the games aren't going to be as difficult to watch as they have been this year. We're not going to be trotting out guys that were playing in the G League 3 nights ago. I mean, it's going to be a lot more fun and a lot more competitive next year.
Absolutely. When we get back, we're going to continue our chat about the silver and black and continue our talk about rebuilding, retooling. What are fans saying about this upcoming offseason? Nate had a chance to catch up with a few Spurs fans after the game versus Utah. We'll see what Nate found out from you guys when it comes to your silver and black. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Yep. Tournament, that NCAA tournament, it's heating up, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything from the money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the net. All safe on an app that's secure, safe, and super easy to use. Don't miss out on your shot at the no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. And I also want to talk about our newest advertiser right here on Locked On Spurs. I'm very proud because it's a local company. Yeah, really good to help support local San Antonio businesses, and that is Mudslingers. So if you're going to be staying up late tonight to watch the Spurs Warriors and you're going to need a pick-me-up tomorrow, or you just need to pick me up right now, then you want to go to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. Mudslingers is locally owned and an independent coffee shop, and they're proud to make delicious coffee for our community. They do it fast and friendly. You can get on with your day. And whether you're in the mood for a latte, cold brew, or the Red Bull infused lightning bolt, yikes, that sounds pretty interesting. I got to get myself one of those. They have the drinks for every taste. They also have a wide selection of dairy alternatives, low-calorie options, even caffeine-free drinks for those who want to just take it easy. Go to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee for a tasty and convenient caffeine fix right now. Located at 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive near 281 and 1604. They're open every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I've been there, a very friendly staff, quick service, but an excellent cup of coffee or whatever you want that they have on the menu. You got to go there right now. Life is too short for bland coffee. Let's go ahead and bring him back. He is Nate Ryan, my colleague at Ken's 5 TV. He is the sports anchor for Ken's 5, and we're talking about the silver and black. Nate, you had a chance to catch up with some Spurs fans after the recent game versus Utah at the AT&T, which was the final home game for the season in San Antonio. I know the Austin games, but you all get what we're talking about. Yeah. Nate, what is the fan feedback? How are fans feeling right now going into the offseason with the lottery and the draft just right around the corner?
Yeah, first off, I like that promo read, man. That life is too short for bland coffee, especially.
I had that lightning bolt one. My goodness,
I like.
Look, we'll probably know if Nate is drank one on TV because he probably went a mile a minute. And we're done. Next.
Yeah, that energy is fueled by Java right there, man.
Yeah.
But talking to fans, I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about this season, especially too, because it's just a total testament to the passion of the Spurs fan base. You've got most everybody who's at these games, and decent crowd for the last game at the AT&T Center. Everybody this season, not only, I mean, they're still watching the on-court product here, but they all know. I mean, you go on Spurs Twitter, which we all know is a fun place to be. Reading highlight videos on YouTube. Everybody is aware of the prize that awaits for the top picks. I mean, I'm putting together a little sort of feature story where I'm just going around, and it's got really no point. It's just a story about the hope that Spurs fans have of something that may or may not possibly even really happen. I mean, there's a mural here somewhere in San Antonio. I know, Jeff, you were talking about it a couple weeks ago. There's a mural of Wembanyama on some, the side of some building down here. We don't even know if we're going to get this guy. What's going to happen to the mural if we get the number 3 pick and that guy's playing in Detroit next year?
It'll be replaced with the Nate Ryan mural. That's what's
I don't know about that. We got to get the Locked On Spurs. That's going to be what it is. But no, it's a total testament to the passion and the intersection of culture and sport that the Spurs have with the city of San Antonio. I mean, I'm talking to people who people were lining up to give their takes on Wembanyama, and it was like was a party out there. People are
Sure.
fired up. I mean, it's going to be one of those things where, I never was here as a journalist covering any of the 5 championship runs. I mean, I got here about a year ago, but I hear so many awesome stories about how when the Spurs win the NBA championship, I mean, you hear cars honking, along the Riverwalk in downtown San Antonio celebrating. I think, honestly, with the pain that some of these fans, not even pain, but just with the hope that's been building and building and building, honestly, because we've been talking about the draft lottery and in regards to this team since probably November. And with all that build up over the months, if it finally pays off and the ping pong balls bounce our way, I think you're probably going to hear some cars honking in the streets.
Oh,
too,
for sure.
the number 1 pick,
Absolutely. Yeah. If the Spurs get lucky enough to get the number 1 pick, cars will be honking. I remember where I was when the Spurs won the lottery for Tim Duncan. I was in college. I was in college. Yeah, I was in college. I had a a gig to get some money to make my way through college, working at a local San Antonio resort. And I'm at my job, and we had a little radio in the I guess the employee room, we clock in and whatnot. And I just heard somebody just yell loud, and I thought something happened. As an emergency happened, I go to the back room, high fives everywhere. I just heard, we just won the lottery. Here comes Tim Duncan. And that's where I was in San Antonio when it happened. So I think fans are gonna, these younger generation fans that grew up literally with the big 3 are gonna get to experience that as I did back in the day. And I think Wemby will do that. I don't know. Do you think Scoot will get that same reaction if they get number 2 pick?
I think that, like, I think at first, like, the people, because there's so many people who are dialed in on, the more people I talked to last night, everybody knew Victor. I mean, they would say Wambi, but they knew they were in the ballpark. Even people who, like, you wouldn't peg as people who would be dialed into the draft class.
Right.
Everybody knew the prize that awaited with the top pick. And a lot of us, obviously you and I do, but even, most people, they know who Scoot is. I remember, I'm waiting to do my live shot an hour after the game's over. People are all out, and the ushers are all getting together, and they're talking about the prospect of the number 1 pick, like they're just kind of having that conversation. I overheard it. There was that conversation between Wemby and Scoot, right? Me, I love Scoot Henderson. I mean, I think there's more of a need of a point guard for this franchise than Wembanyama. And it feels a great need. It's a kind of thing where I think Scoot has got a lot of similar traits as a guy like maybe Damian Lillard has. The impact that guy kind of has on a franchise, where he's a guy who makes plays happen for his teammates, but that's a guy when you need a bucket at the end of the game, that's the guy who's you want the ball in his hands.
So based on what you do your interactions with Spurs fans after that Utah game, it sounds like Spurs fans kind of understood the assignment this season. I know there was some kind of ebbs and flows. There was, remember, Team Tank versus Team Compete. That was like civil war across social media with Spurs fans. But it seems to me like at this point of the season, everybody kind of seems to be unified. And all right, we know what it is. We got to get this lottery in the belt.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where the lottery itself has grown so much over the years, where, I mean, you just mentioned listening onto the radio in 1999, like figuring out who would get the number 1 pick. I mean, now the lottery is televised. It's its own 30-minute block of television where, you've got to wait 2 commercials before you even find out who gets the number 1 pick. Right? And I think that just sort of adds to, it's just why we love, the NBA and why we love sports, because there's entire cities. I mean, think about it. There's entire cities that are not just the team, but the cities that are hinging on a couple numbers, right? Because a guy like Wembanyama, I mean, you see that, and the Spurs, it affects city tourism. It affects city businesses. It affects everything because it just puts you on the map, right? How cool is that?
Yeah, exactly. And, jersey sales,
of course,
go through the roof.
Ticket sales, I guarantee you, if we get the number 1 pick, that ticket office phone line is going to be ringing off the hook.
Oh, for sure. Yes. I think road games, too, are going to get more of a draw for San Antonio as well.
We are a team that people want to see us.
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, it's Wemby, and the stars of the NBA currently are going to want to get a piece of him, too. So we got a lot of action on the court.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We're talking with Nate Ryan. He's my colleague over at Ken's 5 San Antonio, talking about your silver and black. And it seems to me, at least based on what Nate was able to figure out at the Utah game, that Spurs fans are looking forward to hopefully getting the number one pick. The thing too, Nate, is if the Spurs don't get the number one pick, I think there'll be a little bit kind of a deflating feeling, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. A little. I mean, if we get, and I will be a little deflated if we get the third pick, honestly. But I'll be okay with it. Because I still think this is a draft where there's a lot of good players that could go in the top 5. If we get the number 2 pick, I'm cool. I'm totally cool with it because Scoot Henderson is a guy who's a day 1 starter at point guard. You trot out a starting 5, Scoot, Sohan, Vassell, Eldon, and Zach Collins. I mean, I'm okay with that.
Absolutely.
But because those are the 2 names that people have been talking. Guys like you and me have been talking about for so long. Because once you get to 3, that's where I think the real debate starts. And this is probably for a wider conversation. I mean, if you would have asked me 4 months ago, I would have said Brandon Miller is the number 3 pick. I mean, he's a guy who's got a body like Kevin Durant, but he had that legal sort of issue with delivering a gun to his teammates. I moved past that. I still would have taken him at 3, but he had a terrible NCAA tournament. I mean, I think he made 7 shots in total, 9 in total in the NCAA tournament. And I was watching him really closely against competition. That's on the biggest stage. That's when your team needs you most. He just looked like he didn't want to shoot the basketball. But then that's where the debate starts to creep in. Where do you take a guy like Brandon Miller, number 3? Do you take one of the Thompson twins out of the G League? Those are guys that are super athletic and have the wherewithal where they're defensive stoppers and they've got NBA ready bodies, but then it's like, they've been playing in the G League. They weren't playing in Division 1. So a guy like Nick Smith from Arkansas, who's a point guard, who was a top 5 recruit in his class, who was hurt a majority of the season. If I had the number 3 pick, that's who I would take if I was the Spurs, Nick Smith, because he had a fantastic NCAA tournament. He's finally healthy, but now we're going down the rabbit hole, Jeff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this Nate. I got to save some of these topics. We got a long off season coming.
It's just this is our job, man.
I know
we've been all season long, and we're so close. We're about a month away.
A month away. That's right. He is Nate Ryan. With Ken's 5 TV, holding it down the sports desk as the anchor for your local TV. When we get back, you're about to hear the fastest game preview tonight. Spurs Warriors, right here with Nate Ryan.
Autobots, roll out.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Nate Ryan, my colleague at Ken's 5 TV. He is a sports anchor. We're talking about your silver and black. Hey, Nate, you want to have the fastest Spurs Warriors preview?
Sure, let's do it.
They lost. All right, moving on. I mean, the Warriors. The credit. The Warriors are kind of starting to peak a little bit right now. They're starting to get a little bit of a groove. They could be a possibly very dangerous team heading into the playoffs.
I mean, this is when they turn it on, man. That's a team I'm not betting against it, especially when we get to late April. That's for sure.
I mean, what do you expect from the Spurs? I guess the same old. Just I think Branham said it best after the game versus Utah. I mean, you were there when he said, "Compete, keep on getting better. We're a young team," and that sums it up. Well, what you'd expect from the Spurs tonight and the rest of the games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm looking at the rest of the season is if Jeremy Sohan plays another game. I mean, Greg Popovich said, and we haven't seen him in a week or so now, but. And Pop said he didn't think they were going to shut him down for the rest of the year, but the closer and closer we get. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if we see him play the games in Austin. I don't think we'll see him on the road trip. They had him up in Austin doing some promotion work the team did earlier this week, but just to, show the fans in Austin and give them, a little bit of a show for, promotional reasons. But no, I don't think we'll see him on the road trip. Pop said the other night, it was just like, hey, listen, they lost by, 11 and they were, down almost 20 there in the fourth quarter. And Pop was just like, hey, they played hard. What else can you ask for?
I mean, yeah, exactly.
A guy that I'd be looking for, I guess, a little bit. I'd love to see Blake Wesley get a bulk of minutes because
Yeah, I agree.
he's a guy that, Branham, Branham's impressed. We know what we've got in him. And, I think he's a guy who's played his way into the rotation next year for sure. He was the guy I loved coming out. I didn't know how he was still available on the board with us when he lasted last year's draft. I loved watching him in college. He was a late bloomer, bit of the same deal here. I think he's got a piece on this team for the next few years. Give Blake Wesley a little bit of rope and, let him make more mistakes than usual. I wouldn't even be opposed to seeing him start a game at point guard and seeing what you have in him, because he's sort of the third first-round pick that we don't really, we want to see more of, I guess.
Yeah, I got my eye on Mamu simply because he could be the odd man out. So let's just look into the crystal ball. And the Spurs won the lottery. They get Wemby. Okay, so now that's Wemby, Collins, Bassie, Mamu. So something's got to give. And I know everybody say, well, Wemby's switchable. And sure he is. But I definitely can see him maybe get back stashed to the Austin Spurs if he's still around. Spurs fans, we've been through this before, Nate. We've seen big guys come to San Antonio. We fall in love with them. Fan favorites, and they're gone. From Boban to Jock Landale to who else am I missing? Plenty of Baines is another one. So hopefully he doesn't go that route for the Spurs. But nevertheless, I'm keeping an eye on him. I think he's been impressive in his short time here in San Antonio. Very European style. I mean, you can just look at it. That's a Euro player, right up Pop's alley. So I keep an eye on him. Also, one other guy I want to keep on too, my eye on is Romeo Langford, because the best availability is availability, and he hasn't really been available this year, Nate.
He hasn't. And he was kind of coming into his own early on when he was. Like the first half of the season, he was proving his mettle as a defensive stopper, kind of guy. And that was the guy was the top 15 pick of the Boston Celtics. He was one of the best recruits in the country coming out of high school when he went to Indiana. But, he was a throw-in sort of in that deal last year with Derek White. And, he had a couple great games where he was often guarding the other team's best perimeter player, and he did a good job on him. And he just hasn't been able to stay healthy and stay on the court.
Yeah, Pop is making it very clear that they're evaluating talent. To prepare for next season. So keep an eye on those bubble guys. You can expect the Barlows to be going back to Austin, likely. I can never pronounce his last name. Champagne, or is it Champagne or something like that?
Champagne is his name.
Champagne. Thank you. Likely go back to Austin, but it's those fringe guys, those right there, those Mamus, Wesley, for him, could he see more time in Austin next year?
Yeah, exactly. Because Blake Wesley, the biggest difference between Wesley and the Barlows and the Langfords is Wesley's under contract for 2 more years after this one because he was a first-round pick. So we have him, right? And he flashes like great speed as a point guard. Well, he'll make some dazzling plays. But just the decision making, sometimes it just looks like he's out of control, and it's like, dude, pump the brakes, But we have him under control as a first round pick for a little bit.
Absolutely. So Spurs Warriors tonight. We likely know what the outcome is going to be, but hey, win. Spurs secured a 14% slot. So yay, there you go. The season has been a success. He is Nate Ryan with Ken's 5 TV, my colleague over there on the TV side of things, holding it down for the sports side. Nate, you mentioned a few things right now that you've been busy. What's cooking in San Antonio?
Cooking in San Antonio, I did a really fun interview earlier this week with, I don't know if you've been to a San Antonio FC match, our soccer club here. They're owned by the Spurs Sports and Entertainment, sort of go hand in hand with the Spurs, but they won the championship USL title last year. Ton of fun those matches are. They're out there by Morgan's Wonderland. The goalkeeper, Jordan Farr, he's the best goalkeeper in the league, and his personality is through the roof. He's the goalie on the team, but in the offseason, he had a baby, he had his first child, his first daughter, and he was in a beef jerky commercial. So I sat down and talked to him. Go check that out on our website. We've got some great boxing bouts coming up here in a few weeks. Jesse Bam Rodriguez, who's from the area, is fighting here. Eddie Ortiz is fighting here in a couple months. A lot of fun, exciting things happening here in SA.
Awesome. By the way, this past week we had the Spurs VP basketball operations, Brandon James, come on, and he was talking about the Austin games, and he said, he kind of a little hint, a little teaser for fans to go. Said expect some celebrities to show up. So I did some digging and I found the celebrity list and I saw Nate Ryan's name on it. Congratulations, Nate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's.
Did I get the fake list?
I'm literally at almost every other game. So is Bill Land and Sean Elliott on there as well too?
probably more than likely, yeah. But they'll be busy working that game. He is Nate Ryan. Follow him on Twitter at Nate Ryan Sports. Great follow. He'll not only talk year off about Spurs, but everything sports related. Hey, MLB starting too, so test his knowledge right there. And we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, and YouTube, and on the Kens 5 Plus app as well. And last but not least, your second listen, make it Locked On Game to Game NBA, available wherever you get podcasts. So for Nate Ryan, I am Jeff Garcia. We're putting a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.